You're listening to Tiny Little Victories, the show that talks to humans who are changing the world. I'm your host, Jennifer Kite Powell, and on today's show, we're going to talk about the future. Have you ever wondered about what the future will look like? Is AI going to take over our lives? Can you be cryogenically frozen? My next guest, Briar Prestidge, is the CEO of the Prestidge Group. She is a Web3 evangelist and a futurist, an Interpol advisor, and she's going to talk to us about what the future means and why we have to keep asking questions to get the right answers. Stay tuned for this episode with Briar Prestidge. Okay, Briar, here we go. I love that. I'm so happy that you're here today on Tiny Little Victories. And can I just say, you look amazing.
Thank you, Jennifer. And honestly, thank you so much for all of your support over the past couple of years. You know, I remember when we premiered 48 Hours in the Metaverse, and you wrote this absolutely fantastic article about it, and you've just really supported me. And so, yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. And I know, there's just so many places to go. And just to everybody that's listening out there, this woman is amazing. I know you heard all this in the bumper. And I think one of the things that jumps out at me most about you is you are a Web3 evangelist in everything you do and everything you breathe, how you do your work. And so your newest project is Cyborg to Be. And so is that like the version 2 of where you went from 48 Hours in the Metaverse? Was that a natural evolution, or did something happen along the way?
I guess it was. Yeah. It was interesting after exploring the metaverse for such a long time and visiting 33 virtual worlds and interviewing 21 different avatars, and really getting to understand how in the future our physical and virtual lives might intertwine. And in my explorations, I came across so many fascinating people, futurists, transhumanists, longevity experts, and it really made me start to understand that the only change in our lives is constant. The only constant in our life is change.
I think it works both ways, really, to be honest, what you just said.
I was like, did I get that right? But really we have to be curious. We have to explore, and you know that the future is going to take shape, and we might not necessarily know how it's going to be today, but the most important thing is that we're not fearful about it, and we go out there and we understand that we can play a proactive role. So yeah, I think in some ways just understanding that, it stopped me from being fearful. So it made me appreciate that in the future, we shouldn't be fearful about it. We should play a proactive role. We should stand up and we should explore it and be curious.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing you said that I have really put on my refrigerator is no answer lasts forever. There's not one answer. And you said this, and that's part of your sort of raison d'etre, you know, and that we got to ask the right questions if we're going to build the right future. And I really don't believe there are a lot of futurists out there, to me, that take your approach, because you've literally dug into every single thing. Like you just listed longevity and then, you know, cryogenics, and you are like testing everything yourself. And I think that makes you a better futurist or a Web3 evangelist than most people who just, I feel like a lot of people just like spout off stuff without actually like walking the walk. And I feel like some of your projects and the sort of your business, because you are an entrepreneur, your businesses that you've created have been the perfect example of, if we're going to live in that world, let's live in that world.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny that you say this. I now sit on Interpol as a metaverse advisor, and part of the reasons why they invited me was they had a lot of scientists and experts, and they were like, you know what? We need people with real life experience. Oh, Briar, she's got ample amounts of that. So that was really funny. But you're absolutely right. You know, we need to go out there and partake, because with these sorts of topics, they're not just black and white.
Yeah, totally.
I find that a lot of my thoughts, like when it comes to cryogenics, for instance, I was recently in Arizona. I went to the Alcor facility and I learned about potentially freezing or preserving my body so that come 100, 300 years in the future, I might be revived. And, you know, a lot of people are looking at me like I'm relatively crazy for wanting to do that. And even myself, I'm thinking, am I crazy? And I'm so on the fence about it. But, you know, when I explored it, there were actually so many more interesting things to uncover, such as back in the day, for instance, with Einstein's brain, they really thought that by cutting it up into 200, 300 pieces and mailing it around the world in order to see what made it so special was the thing to do. But had we actually preserved that via cryonics, we would be able to analyze it so much better and understand it's the synapses and the neurons and how everything is interacting. So just even going and understanding and thinking, you know what, maybe it's not going to be me who's going to be revived in 100 years or 300 years. Maybe the technology might not exist to unfreeze us in the manner that I want to be. But, you know, hey, maybe I give back to the next generations. Yes. I started to see it as almost like a scientific experiment.
It is a scientific experiment. And two things. One, the Einstein brain is a fantastic example of when people looked at you like you were crazy, or people talk about that as fringe. First of all, I don't think that stuff is fringe. I think it's foundational. And if we don't bring that into the forefront right now, we'll never move forward. But the Einstein brain was really barbaric, if you think about it. Okay, I know he was dead. But still, how can cryogenics be less or more barbaric than slicing open somebody's brain and mailing it around the world? Like, this is evolution. And I think science and technology constantly evolves, and bringing that into the frame for people to not be fearful of. Like you even said, I'm kind of on the fence. So what are you on the fence about with the cryogenics?
Well, a lot of people were saying to me like, oh, what about the afterlife? Like, will you miss out? Like, obviously it really does open up a lot of very philosophical conversations. But so obviously the life after death thing is a very interesting and very philosophical discussion. But the more I sort of thought about it, and the more I dug around in the community as well, I found myself in this Discord community where a lot of people are very heavily discussing cryogenics. And a lot of people were thinking, well, what's the difference between me being buried in the ground or me being cremated and me being stuck in a metal canister? Like, in terms of how will it actually affect me going to the afterlife?
Exactly. And I think we can take a lot of historical reference from this. You think about the Egyptians who really believed that they were sending people to the afterlife, and they would, take everything out, put it in jars, put them in a beautiful box, protect their body, cryogenics, wrap it, food, their dead pets. How is that any more basically, to me, cryogenics is almost full circle back to how the Egyptians envisioned an afterlife, or where you were going to be taken next. So I don't know why we are okay with that, but we can't get to cryogenics.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And obviously there's so much interesting things happening in the longevity space. Like, I'm very curious about the whole immortal mind upload as well. So actually taking our brain and potentially putting it into some robotic interface in the future is a very interesting discussion as well.
Tell me, what are the thoughts around that in these groups that you're finding about that longevity and taking the brain or the mind or the soul and putting it into a robotic interface? I'm really interested in that.
Well, I think a lot of people in the transhumanist community especially see our current bodies that we have, this meat sack, as being quite, I guess, annoying in some ways, and could be a lot more optimized. And really, when you think about it, like, humans have constantly been evolving and optimizing how we do things. Like, we created shoes because our feet were soft. We created fishing rods so we could catch fish. Like, we really are quite hopeless little creatures, really when we think about it. But what makes us so unique is the fact that we use our brains and we use technology and we evolve and we create things that help our shortcomings.
Yeah.
Now,
I like that.
regarding the future, like, we're very much moving into this era of intelligence, both biological and artificial. So we're moving from the fourth industrial revolution into this era. And yes, it's going to be a massive period of change. Like, some experts are saying that we're going to undergo more change in the next 100 years than we did in the last 20,000 years.
It's amazing.
So obviously, isn't that incredible?
It's incredible.
And of course, with that comes it can be quite scary going through so much change. But I think at the same time, the artificial intelligence, the robotics, these things are going to solve a lot of very mundane, repetitive, and quite boring tasks for humanity. And if we look back in history, and I love talking about history because I think it sometimes helps guide us with what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
If we look back in history, when the machines came to be in the fourth industrial revolution, people were so worried and fearful about losing their jobs. But actually what they found is that they made more money, and it actually opened up a lot better jobs for them. So I think we are going to see a lot of that in the future. I hope so anyway.
I would love for you to talk to us about your new reality style show, Cyborg to Be. I'm very interested in this. So how did this happen?
Yeah, so for me, I'm producing it in a reality TV way by design. And I believe that a lot of these conversations about the future are very important, and I want to meet people on their level. So I'm essentially saying it's like Kim Kardashian meets science.
Love it.
I'm going out there interviewing many fascinating futurist scientists and really bringing these philosophical discussions to the masses. And I think it's really interesting because I've been running a personal branding agency now for about 8 years. And I always think that executives or CEOs or thought leaders, like we always follow the influencers, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really interesting micro pieces of content, such as like from Hulu and Netflix, that are going out on social media and they're getting amplified. Like just even following the Kardashians, they're very interesting in terms of their digital strategy and that long form content, and also the short form and the way it's distributed on social media. So I'm really tapping into that niche. But back to Cyborg to Be, it's really this protagonist story. So we discussed it's about my journey and my sort of explorations into the future. And sometimes people are like, oh, you're wearing all of these sequins and big sparkly dresses while talking about Neuralink and interviewing the first patient of the Neuralink. Like, how is that sort of appropriate? And I basically say to people, listen, this is by design. Whatever I can do to get more eyeballs on these very important discussions and to gather people's interests is what I'm prepared to do. And, sometimes I think futurism, transhumanism, like we need a bit of a rebrand in this space. Let's be real.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I never saw people who were entrepreneurs or even successful people that were women. I was from a very small town in New Zealand called Darfield, and it just wasn't really on my radar.
Yes.
Yeah, go New Zealand.
Go New Zealand.
I love New Zealand as well, but definitely a big city girl.
Yes, I could see where you're. I mean, like, what is like young Briar growing up in the green rolling hills of New Zealand? And
oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you there, but I also see you more here. And I think your superpower is that you're able to take probably those foundational roots from there and then be able to come out and be in the place you're supposed to be. I don't think where you're born is necessarily your, end game, and share all this with the world. So I love that. And I also want to ask you is like, how is the way you dress like relevant to the topics that you talk about? This mindset confuses me with people. How have you dealt with that with those people?
Well, I think it's really interesting, a lot of the comments that I do get on social media. And I do find that a lot of people commenting, like I picture them being like little keyboard warriors, like not really curious and going out there and exploring and very black and white with their thinking. And yeah, it just baffles me, to be honest, sometimes about why people don't want people to express themselves. And I really do hope that we're in 2024 now, why can't we wear sparkles? Like my team always finds sparkles around our office because they're so used to me wearing sparkles. I
honestly think that, like you said, like this kind of talk, the futurist talk, does need a rebrand because it's either anchored by sci-fi, where the women have either like skimpy robotic outfits where guns shoot out of their, right here, or there's it's just all men. And I don't understand why someone can't express themselves. I'm not sure you would question a man if he dressed like that. I'm pretty sure you probably wouldn't, unless they were naked doing a show. I don't know, maybe. But I think that your expression, and you said like it's designed on purpose to get eyeballs to think about this while you're having these talks, is a really good strategy, because we tend to be so judgmental and biased towards certain things. And these types of topics are really heavy on science and technology. And that sometimes scares people, right? So I think your brand, you're making it relatable to people or making it look like the wow factor, hopefully will bring more people to the table.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I think diversity in the futurism space is really important because, in the past, it has primarily been white, old men who have been futurists. And that's what data shows, and I think it's really important that we do have diversity in age, gender, nationality, schooling, experience, all coming together because the future can be designed in so many different ways. And that's why we all need to bring our unique perspectives to the table. What suits one group of people in the future isn't going to suit another group of people.
So true. That is so dystopian too. When you see any sci-fi film or anything, it's always like, we're in factions. They wear gray, they wear green. That's just not going to happen. Like the fact that you would give up your personality in the future isn't, I think, not a realistic projection of what the future will be like. I mean, people sort of dress alike, every epoch. They wear mini skirts or, they have different styles. It was all blue jeans in the 80s and denim jackets. And there's always that part of fashion. But to sort of criticize like the authentic style of someone tied to a particular topic, to me, just very close-minded. And that's why I love your posts. When you actually post and you said, I get a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl, because people should wear whatever they want to wear. And also, I see some business attire outfits that I wouldn't even go take my trash out in the yard, So it's like, how is that business attire? I don't get it.
I was going to say, that's what I love so much about the metaverse is you can express yourself. You can show up and be whoever you want to be. And I think that's why Generation Z and Gen Alpha love platforms like Roblox and Minecraft and stuff like this so much, is because they can really express themselves. They can be like a yellow block or they could wear dresses made of like burning fire or melting ice. And that's really why I've been exploring it. And I launched my fashion label on Roblox recently. We've got this amazing futuristic shopping mall. So it's called the World of Voltaire. And we've been designing lots of fashion. We sold 5,000 pieces during the first 15 days, which was really cool. So it's been interesting understanding the next generation's buying behaviors, because buying NFTs and dressing up is just very normal for them. And I'm telling people who are saying to me, the metaverse is dead. I'm saying it's not dead, it's just not here yet, because these younger generations are going to become older and they're our virtual natives. They spend more time on Roblox than they do on social media. 73 million daily users are on Roblox.
That is a
primarily
huge
Generation
number.
Z and Generation Alpha. Huge number. And to be honest, I'm almost put off mentioning it because every time I check, it's outdated. The number just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
I think it's great that you mentioned it because it proves your point of explosive growth. And I think, you're right about those two generations. They think differently, they process differently, they want different things.
Yes.
And I also think that your point about allowing people to dress how they want, why the metaverse is a way, maybe the metaverse is a way to bring more equality and diversity. And maybe if we're doing it there, we can do it a little bit better out here, because we're not doing so great out here. I want to talk about the fashion line though for a minute. You had is this your second fashion line? Because I think you had one before this where you were doing really nice pantsuits for women. Like really,
I was.
Yes. That was this generation 1, and then this fashion line and Altera is generation 2.
Yeah. So, thanks for asking. So I originally did have a real life, I have to say this real life thing, real life fashion label back in, I launched it in 2020. So I actually launched it during the pandemic, which was hilarious. Such terrible timing to be launching amazing pantsuits during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, how would you know? Like, how would you know, right?
Right? I was like, I'm going to get this brand out come rain, shine, or pandemics. We're going to do it.
Great in their house. They're going to look great. They're going to feel
totally. Great. Yeah, exactly. And then there came an opportunity around 2022 when I had this opportunity to create a phygital label. So I created this spin-off NFT version of the suits for a platform called Decentraland, which is another metaverse style platform. And it was amazing to see how it went there. We showcased it at the world's first Metaverse Fashion Week, which was pretty cool. And then there came a point where, as an entrepreneur, I obviously have my fingers in a few pies and businesses and stuff like this. And I just had to take a bit of a step back and be like, you know what? I don't really like having this real life fashion label. I love fashion, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when it came to the whole manufacturing aspect and things like this, I was just like, this is not something that I can really get passionate about.
Yeah.
And I had to make the really, really hard decision to close it with the idea that I would be able to focus that energy on other things such as my executive branding agency, Cyborg to Be, Hyperscale, my metaverse fashion label, because I do think it's a really exciting space, the future of fashion. Like even you and I today, Jennifer, like I could be wearing this augmented reality overlay. You might have in the future like a brain computer interface or augmented reality contacts, and my outfit could be changing 5 times a minute or something like this, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool because I mean, we all clothe ourselves, and we have for a very long time, right? Eons tried to wear clothes, to whether it was a fur cape or the progression of fashion. And I think, like you said earlier, this movement into the future, I think these are kind of things that are enjoyable things to be able to express yourself. And, it's so hard. I feel like society just doesn't want you to express yourself in so many ways. And it's actually feeling like it's getting a little worse. So yeah, I would love to be able to do that and from call to call switch and have a different overlay outfit on. I think that would enrich my life quite a bit. And I love that you also made the hard decision. It's hard, I think, as an entrepreneur. And I want to ask you about that, but you're doing the right thing, I think, because you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And you do have to eventually look and cherry pick, you know what, I'm more passionate about this. This is where I want to put my time. And I think that's a really difficult thing to do for people today, is to let go of things.
Yes. It's true. And over the years, so I've been an entrepreneur now for almost 9 years. It's been such a journey. And I think there's a big difference between being an entrepreneur and being a CEO. Like it's been a very interesting experience. And I'm very mindful now about my time. I'm very mindful about my health and taking care of myself. So exercising, eating healthy food, sleeping, because you can't give the best of yourself to others if you're not taking care of yourself. And for many years, I sacrificed myself thinking that it's what I needed to do in order to achieve success with my businesses. And to be honest, if I look back, part of me is thinking, yeah, maybe that was a little bit necessary. One does have to be a certain amount of neurotic at the start and really pushing through and giving everything for it. Otherwise, the thing's just not going to get off the ground. But I think what you really have to do as you mature as an entrepreneur is, be very mindful about systems, processes, hiring people, be very particular about your time. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to scale. We only have so much time.
So true. And I like your word particular about time, because I do think that they have done a lot of studies between men and women where, women tend to think of these things more like, am I giving the right amount of time? Am I giving too much time? I hear you. I had a company and sold it years ago. I worked non-stop around the clock. And now, second time around, I'm a little more, you know what, that's not really serving me. I'm going to do the things that I love, the things that serve me. And this brings us full circle in a way back to, I want to talk about the Prestidge Group a little bit. This is you're the founder, you're the CEO, and you mentioned something earlier about the difference between an entrepreneur and a CEO. So when you founded the Prestidge Group, what role did you feel like you were more in, as the entrepreneur or the CEO?
Oh gosh, Jennifer, when I started the business, I started it off the back of 1 month's salary, and I literally was eating frozen vegetables and instant noodles for the month. I remember rationing my toothpaste on my toothbrush. That's how scared I was about running out of money. And It was very hard in the early days, and, the business was certainly a bit before its time. Like back then, 8 years ago, CEOs were not posting on LinkedIn. They certainly weren't posting on Instagram. People only used to post on these platforms if they were looking or hiring for jobs. So when I'm coming in and talking about, hey guys, you have to think about your digital presence, like they were very much in that very traditional media mindset.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part was technology experts were one of the first to be interested in something. And I think that's really where my love of tech really started.
Okay.
We did pick up a lot more traditional opportunities back then. So a lot of PR, media relations, speaking opportunities. But we really saw it as this interesting, no one was giving us a roadmap for how to do executive branding. So we really got to create our own strategies, which was fascinating.
It is fascinating, and also puts you in a big, powerful place, because I still don't think people really even know what they're doing with their executive branding. And I still think even today in 2024, sometimes I talk to people, I'm like, you do know it's 2024, right? Like you have all these opportunities to use these platforms with micro content and content, and still there's sometimes this disconnect. And so when you were, saving your toothpaste and you were building this company, what point did you know you were on the right path? Did you yep, I got it?
Oh gosh. I think once we see the results, really. I remember we worked with this very interesting technology entrepreneur who'd been part of the dot-com boom and sold his first company to Microsoft, and then had laid low for about 10 years building a startup in Dubai. And so when we got our hands on him, he was a great public speaker, but he had zero online presence. He had no media mentions for the past 10 years. So we really took this as an opportunity to be like, right, how can this thing really work? And it was just so fascinating how he became very quickly top of mind for a lot of journalists, for a lot of event producers and things, because they were constantly seeing his content. And it really was like the proof was in the pudding sort of situation. And over the years, we've worked with such fascinating individuals, from cybersecurity advisor to the US government, through to granddaughter of a Russell Kamer prince. Like you name it, we've done it by this point. We're a team of 25. We're in the top 3 executive branding agencies in the world. And I'm really saying to my team, it's very interesting, the future. Like in the future, I predict things like digital twins and like CEOs having reality TV-esque style content and things like this. And I think it's only going to spiral even more from here.
I agree with you, and I absolutely love that you made that journey, and now you've grown to this team of 25. What has changed for you the most now from then to now? Because now you have a futurist podcast called Hyperscale, which is one of my favorite podcasts. You have the Cyborg to Be reality series. You have 48 Hours documentary in the metaverse, which won lots of awards. You're doing work with Interpol. Yes. That's a huge thing. I mean, I could go on in the list, but it's a long list. So what has changed? You're still running Prestige Group. For you as a woman that is managing many things, how have you changed because of all of these?
I have changed so much. I think you learn, entrepreneurship is MBA on steroids, I feel. You really do quickly grow and evolve. And, when you're out there and doing things and being proactive, it's just, you go one way 1 minute, you're going another way the next minute, like you're experimenting. You've got that startup, innovative mentality. And I think certainly having to be quite... having that hustle in the early days. I think I've really carried that with me throughout my entire career, because I'm able to be very innovative and think outside the box. I never had an agency prior to working in this space.
Yeah, let things fall away that aren't working for you. And I think that is, to me, like the real, evolution in the brain. Like, I'm going to let this fall away.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I've got such an amazing team supporting me these days. Obviously, I live between Dubai and New York, so I do spend a lot more time on the plane these days. So when I first started the business, I lived in this very small windowless room that barely fit my bed. And, obviously now things are so different, It's just really funny to think back how times have changed. But I wouldn't have done it any differently. It taught me a lot. you really appreciate things, I think, when you build something from the ground up.
100%. When you're pulling the pennies together to buy a bag of lentils to make ends meet, like I get it. It makes you appreciate things better. So
it does.
What is next for you? You got Cyborg to be, and you've got the Neuralink chip put in. You just did hypnosis recently. Is that correct?
So just a clarification, I haven't got the Neuralink yet, but I would actually like one. I've got an RFID microchip implanted in my hand.
Okay.
So I interviewed the world's first patient of Neuralink, so Noland. I played chess with him. I lost.
Yeah.
And it was I lost a game of chess to him, but
that's pretty impressive though to even get to play with him.
Oh, it was so cool. And, he's very inspiring. He sees having his Neuralink and living in this age of artificial intelligence and innovation. He's picturing a future for himself where he can walk again. He's paralyzed from the shoulders down. And he's not wrong. These things could be a very real possibility in the future.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma around brain-computer interfaces. A lot of people say, oh, it's, the governments are going to take over the world and implant everybody with brain-computer interfaces. But really, I think what people are failing to realize is that the worst thing that could happen today is not the governments are going to implant us all with them. It's that people like Noland do not get the funding that is needed in this space. What's so different from, say, a pacemaker, which back in the day also got a lot of stigma, and now we wouldn't think twice if our nan needed it.
Exactly.
Compared to a brain-computer interface.
Also, the exoskeleton. I keep telling my stepfathers, you need to get one of these to help you, stand up and walk straight. You have many more years, but this is where the technology, I love your pacemaker analogy there, because people that have that could live a different life. Like you said, he could maybe get up and walk again. How can we deny people that access to that kind of technology to improve their lives or even bring it to the level that things we take for granted? So you had the RFID put in your wrist. What are you doing with it?
Yeah, so the microchip in my hand I got implanted with world famous Sophia the robot from Hansen's Robotics.
Yes, I read that.
So she came with me. So she's this very interesting robot who talks and had very interesting perspectives. And sorry, Jennifer, one second.
That's okay.
So funnily enough, when I was actually getting my RFID microchip with Sophia, she actually also convinced me to get a piercing and a tattoo with her. So as you can imagine, my producer's surprised when she's on Instagram trying to find a tattoo parlor nearby. And it was just something so novel, Jennifer. I will never forget it. The robot getting a tattoo and the robot starts singing this opera song. It was just like something out of a movie. And I'm sitting there being like, what is this? Now we've got matching lightning bolt tattoos.
So you and Sophia the robot, do we have to call her the robot anymore? Let's just call her Sophia, right?
Sophia, my friend Sophia. Yeah.
I love it. Your friend Sophia. You guys have matching tattoos. Is that her first tattoo?
It is her first tattoo. So it got placed on the fleshy part of her neck.
What?
Yeah, we're besties.
You are probably the only person in the entire galaxy who has a tattoo with Sophia, who's ever had a tattoo with a robot. Cyborg. What are we calling her exactly?
Yeah, and it's her first RFID microchip as well. So she's got, our RFID microchips, you can add us on LinkedIn if you want. Yeah. And it can also unlock my house and my car. So I'm really trying to augment my life and it's that kind of accessibility. Plus, it's a good conversation starter.
It's a great conversation starter.
So I'm going back to Philadelphia to get the payment chip in my other hand now. So the payment chip's even more underground, so it's not actually available on Dangerous Things, which is where I bought my RFID microchip, because MasterCard and Visa do not approve of it yet. So I'm really going to be a guinea pig and see how it's going to work out.
Okay, now you've opened up the whole door, and I'm going to ask quickly. So you can get an RFID microchip in your wrist, but it's underground getting an RFID microchip, by meaning under the radar, or do you mean That's the name of the company, Underground.
So the RFID microchip you can buy in Dangerous Things. So it's
Dangerous Things.
It's a website.
Okay.
Yeah. So check out Dangerous Things, and they're legal. You can buy them, but the payment chip is it's underground. It's very much made in the garage, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, that's why HP started. So I don't know why people are upset about that.
Exactly.
Okay. So the payment thing, I am interested in that because I would imagine that banks and like MasterCard, they don't want that. But at the same time, those guys are like such predatory lenders in a way. And also at the same time, not the same thing, but they came out with like a sound logo a couple of years ago. Do you remember my MasterCard was like, oh, we have a sound logo to let you know your purchase is complete. I'm like, why spend all your money on a sound logo and not think about moving towards the future? I mean, it's the big banks who didn't want to do mobile banking, right? It's the big banks that didn't want to do the things that Klarna was doing when they started, several years ago. So why not? I mean, it seems they would be more control over the consumer with a chip in their head. I don't understand like legacy industries like fear.
I don't understand either. I've heard that the reason they don't want the payment chip is because they feel like it's not secure. And I'm thinking, well, how is me carrying around my card, which by the way, I always lose
Me too.
in my hand? How is that more secure than having it implanted in my hand? It's absolutely not. I honestly think they're just worried again about the stigma. They're just worried about what other people are going to say about this. They're worried about change, society's opinion on change.
Yeah, and I think and for them, that opinion plus other people's opinion, like you said, like, why would I want that? I don't want a chip in my head, or government will track me. Government's already tracking you, bitches. I already got news for you. Like, if you're on social media, you're writing a check, you have a mortgage, you drive a car, you're being tracked. You pay your taxes, even if you don't pay your taxes. So I think these sort of fears, hopefully over time, with you being out there as the Web3 evangelist, will help to diminish some of this fear and help us continue to progress. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all these things. I could talk to you for the rest of the day, but we're going to put everything in the show notes. Is there anything you want to leave us with just before we sign out of here? Sneak peek of something?
I think everyone should, I think everyone should be curious and excited about the future. I think there is a lot of fear, as we discussed earlier. And, at the end of the day, we need to remember that my job as it exists today didn't exist 20 years ago. And in another 20 years, it will probably cease to exist again. So that's what I think it means to be human. We evolve, we change, and we grow.
On that note, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.